We got one of the best and easiest clan boss teams, and one of the coolest dudes to talk about it with. What's up, guys? MtgJedi here. How you doing today? We got my dude Soulsaint in the building. How you doing today, my dude? Thank you so much for joining us. I'm super pumped to talk about this team. I know you are too. What's up with you? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, and it's a pleasure to always have the chance to be able to spend some time with you and get to some action here. This team is going to be fantastic to showcase and give people another option to explore, especially with something new that we recently acquired in the game. So,
Yeah,
really excited for it.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm super pumped. So before we jump into that team, I don't know that we're going to have time to record anything on his channel today, but guys, we are so close to getting him to 1,000 subscribers, and I remember that day for myself. So head on over to Soul Saint's channel. I will have all of his information down there for you. Go click over there, give him a sub, and he'll be talking about the same team on his channel as well, because we've been working on this separately slash together for a while now, and we kind of came to the same conclusion about this team, which is really, really cool. So first, let's jump into the team, and then we're going to start talking about all of the things about the team. So with the team here, we have a high Katoon team in order to boost the speeds, but really this is a Demytha team. So number one, like, how did you come upon this team, and what do you like about it?
So I was originally going to go in a different direction, which included Deacon and Hycatun because I knew Hycatun was going to come. But unfortunately, that team required a higher speed threshold, which was going to be a lot more harder to acquire within a 3 month period. You know, when you're first starting out, there's a lot of RNG elements that you have to get lucky with speed rolls and a lot of things that could slow down the efficiency at being able to acquire certain speed ranges to do the comp. And I ended up stumbling upon, just like how you did, we ended up acquiring Renegade, which opened up the door for us to try a variation to a Demytha comp, which had a much lower speed requirement. And
Yeah.
thankfully, with that, I decided that I was going to go ahead and start putting through with it. And with Rathlos being kind of like the beginning of the free to play this year, or the main champion that you were able to get as a daily login, I decided it would be like a good opportunity to include him in there. And then as time went by, I think as we're going to talk about it, there were some challenges we faced where, like, being able to go the distance with the team was a challenge, and something happened, which was the anniversary event for the Fusion, which allowed us to acquire a new champion that we're going to be showcasing today, and that's in Kafru. And he kind of solved the problem with being able to go the distance. And I think that was the exciting element that we were able to add that's different from any iterations of this team, and to really, really kind of get as much as we can. So that's kind of how it started. And that also, along with the fact that I believe there's a someone that I know that did a very, very similar video in exactly this team.
Yeah, so that's excellent lead in, my dude. That's exactly how this started for me. I covered this team maybe almost a year ago, where I ran Brogni in this Kafru spot, and Brogni was the one who allowed us to survive in combination with Demytha and then Renegade resetting the cooldowns. Once I pulled the Demytha on this free to play challenge account, because one of the key factors here is that this is on a limited time early game free to play account. We don't have gear like we've been playing for 6-9 months a year. We don't have the champion pools. These are fresh new accounts, so we have those limitations. And when I made that video originally on this team, the whole idea was this is your first Ultra Nightmare team. You're unlocking the content for this. So I'll link that video at the end too, so you can see that perspective, with a little bit more access to gear and whatnot, a couple more champions and another option. But what you'll really be able to see on this account in this video is a very early game gear being able to unlock Ultra Nightmare for you, and that's the most exciting thing, I think. So with that being said, how awesome this team is, there's definitely going to be some challenges to building it. So what are some of the challenges that you've come across, and or what are the things that you don't like about this team before we jump into all of the rest of it?
Okay, so challenges wise, I think one of the first issues I faced, and I think you're probably going to share the same sentiment, is books. Demytha likes to read. She's not one of those type of champions that you can only plug one in, kind of similar to Haikatoon, where you only need one book on one ability and that's it. You're ready to go. So Demytha on her A1 as well as her A2 does take quite a bit of books. So trying to get that early game and you're not spending for books yourselves in terms of like buying it monetarily does come with this challenge. And I think you and I both had to go and scramble our way to find through like events and tournaments. And I even had to go to my clan for a second here to get a book from the clan shop. And it was like down to the very last book just to get where I need my books to go. And thankfully I was able to do it, but it's not without its challenges. You know, the more books it requires, the more books you're losing out on that you could be putting elsewhere, the longer it takes to get this team up and rolling.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Because, well, and in addition to that, I think one of the things that sort of altered, I guess, what am I trying to say here? The thing that I tried to do in order to get these books was really lock down and target every single event and tournament that had an epic book in it.
and that's
And
hard on a free to play account
it
where you don't have a
is.
lot of resources and you're building still, you know, you're
Yeah.
trying to get up to that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you're building this, it requires a lot of books. So just be patient. You'll get there eventually. We're
It
on
took time.
a time crunch here, a limited time. But you just be patient, run your other team. Don't dismantle your other team until you have the books to build this.
I
And
agree.
then I think I interrupted your thought. So keep going there, but yeah, you're
No, no,
absolutely
you're
right on
fine.
the
You're fine.
books.
You're fine. So the books was one issue. I think the other thing is that you know you have that legendary. Say for instance, you're starting off at the same time that we are when it came to this free to play series, and Rathlos is your only legendary. It is not natively friendly to have him use his full kit,
Right.
which can be very, very disheartening for someone who used books and it only went to like his A3, for example. Remember, we're limited on the amount of resource we have, right?
Yeah.
So having that A3 book kind of serves no purpose because I believe in the same scenario that I've applied for my teams, I turned that off altogether so that
I did
it wouldn't
too.
affect the tune.
I really still don't understand why we have to turn it off because we have an increased speed buff.
Yes, there's a sync up period. So most of the
Okay.
times for Ultra Nightmare, I think it syncs up on after the second stun, so by turn 6.
Yeah.
And then as you go down in the difficulties with delays and whatnot, it takes a longer sync up period. You can't natively delay more than like 1 or 2 rotations worth of using that ability, so it automatically causes problems. And then also you need to have your AI set up because Renegade's going to reset, so the sync up of when the abilities are used are also going to be uh, restricted to how the rotation of that reset kind of goes. So it really does
Yeah.
kind of cause a hindrance of being able to use it consistently.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think if you're gonna use Rathlos like we did, I think it's really funny, by the way, that we ended up with the exact same 5 champions on 2 separate accounts. Like
Great
that.
minds think alike.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I think that it just shows you how good this team is because we ended with the same 5 champions. But either way, we have to disable this, unfortunately. But that does mean flipping back and forth between the A1 and the A2, and that is a good combination as well.
Mhm.
Um, I think that that's really the only spot that we can change in the team also.
Yes,
Um,
I think that's the only loose area that you can actually plug and play anybody else and it'll work just fine.
Yeah, the other spots are solid. You know, Haikatoon, we can't change her for anyone. Demytha and Renegade, they're set. As I said, there will be some other options for Kafru's spot, but once you see how well he works in here, you're gonna want to use him. It makes it just very easy and straightforward. Do you know of anybody else who can work in that spot other than Brogni and Kafru?
Uh, I mean, outside of like champions, I know we're restricted under like not using legendaries, but there's a lot of legendaries that you can plug and play in there as well that
Okay.
would help out. block damage teams or block damage champions like Rush Guard, Helicap,
Oh,
and all them,
sure.
because they cover everybody,
Yeah.
no matter what. You're okay in terms of
Okay, yeah,
survivability.
yeah, yeah.
Those automatically exist. Maneater, for example, could be another plug and play in. But I think for the context of this, a single target champion that you can put into there, it's kind of difficult. But
I
I would
don't
say maybe like a Skull Crusher could be an example. But even
Oh,
then, it's not
sure.
affinity friendly, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. True, true.
So I think Brogni
Well,
kind
I
of
don't
does a
think
lot
we're
there.
affinity friendly right now. Mine did
No.
not work on Spirit yesterday.
I haven't found a rotation that works exactly for it. I think you'd have to introduce more delays, but
Okay.
it isn't natively friendly to only that affinity, believe it or not, because of the
Yeah.
way that Demytha's cleanse works. This comp works in every other affinity outside of Spirit. Also, it's decreased speed. That's what's really
Yeah.
costing the desync more
Yeah.
than anything.
Yeah. So Brogni does solve that. So if you have
Correct.
him, you can definitely put him in that spot. Otherwise, we're going to want to try to hit on Void. And as I said, with this being like your first Ultra Nightmare team, this is not the team that you want to keep long term. This is your first team to unlock that content, start getting the best rewards in the game from Ultra Nightmare with that chest, and then move on to a better team down the road. All right, so let's jump in and transition here into like how to build this team. What are the key components, and if there are any snags other than books?
So the first thing is understanding that this comp is designed around Demytha first and foremost, right? Your block damage. Unfortunately, because you're gonna have speed requirements like our scenario that we're talking about for a early game account, Renegade is there to help us get to that block damage ability, her A3, a lot sooner. So having a proper timing on her skills, as well as Renegades, and of course Haikatun, and lastly Kafru, excuse me. They all have to have their AI set up in a way that allows consistency of being able to put the same buffs up, the same reset period. It's all about consistency when it comes to speed tuning. So you want things to happen at the same time every 3 turns, nonstop, consistently. So I believe for Haikatun, you pretty much want to prioritize her A2, which is the increased speed. Which is where you get that at. I think for the purpose of like damage and whatnot, having the A3 open isn't really mandatory, so you can just turn that off if you don't want it. Um, for Rathalos, making sure his A3 is off altogether, and then let him run loose with his A2 and his A1. Kafru, believe it or not, what I did is I actually had set it up so that he prioritizes his A2, which I believe is not his unkillable. So
Uh-huh.
that's always used first. And
Yeah.
then the actual unkillable that he puts on himself, he uses it second. And
That's
that'll sync
exactly
up
what I
when the
did
reset
also.
happens.
Yeah.
Correct. So
Yeah.
he'll end up using it before the boss goes into their stun phase. And because he has taunt along with the unkillable, it will always go on him,
Mhm.
leaving the rest of your team alive.
Awesome.
Uh, and then of course Demytha, I believe she is set up to open up with her A1 so that you create a delay on the A2 and the A3, and then of course the A2 one time ahead of the A3. So if you set in your AI to have your A2 go priority 1, and then if you use like in the AI setup, there's a spot where you can click to set as opener. You set your A1 to opener. That will allow it to go A1, A2, A3, and she'll stay in sync.
Yeah, I did the
Uh,
same thing with Kafru as well. Open on his
really?
A1.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know whether that was a need, but I set the A1 to opener, and then that was the thing that allowed this to be full auto for me.
I did not have to set it up for the auto attack to start off for the opener for Kafru,
Okay.
but I don't think it really affects it too much because of the way that the reset happens for Renegade. It
Uh-huh.
allows him to, whenever
Right.
that team is fully in sync, he's just going to do A2, A3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're good either way.
Yeah.
As for Renegade herself, depending on the difficulty, because this actually works in Brutal Nightmare, and Ultra Nightmare. Mind you, still affinity issues are a problem. For Renegade, at least on Ultra Nightmare, you want to open up with something besides the A3, which is her reset.
Yeah.
So I open up with her A2. I actually see that you said it open up with her A1, which is kind
Yeah.
of interesting. But
Yeah, it doesn't
regardless, it
really
still
matter.
works. You just need
Yeah.
to make sure she's not starting off with her A3.
Right. Right.
Um, Key funny little thing for Nightmare and Brutal, if you're ever doing it, you just add one extra delay on her A3, and that keeps the team in sync for the other
So,
rotations.
for Nightmare, I had been doing um an extra turn delay on Haikatun, Demytha and Renegade. Uh, but you're saying that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is delaying Renegade's A3.
Renegade having her A3 delayed an extra turn. So instead of it going like A1, A2 into A3, it's A1, A1, A3 will allow it to sync up. The sync up period does take a little bit longer. It doesn't start at
Yeah.
6. So I think maybe if you add the delays like how you did with Haikatu and Demytha, maybe it syncs up earlier.
Okay.
But I believe just adding an extra delay to the Renegade period just works it's worked for me.
Okay, and that's where it worked on Brutal as well?
Yes, although I haven't had a chance to fully do a run on that one.
Okay.
On any affinity outside of Void.
Okay. Okay.
But I believe it's the same concepts as all the rest of them, whereas like Spirit's the one that's going to throw it out of whack the most.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about the speeds here. I have my Haikatoon at 222.
Same as me.
Rathlos at 194.
I have him at 192.
Okay.
Because of his base speed. If you remember in the calculator, it starts off with like Warboy. His base speed's a little different, and that's affected by Aura.
Okay.
So I dropped him down a little bit, but I think there's a range flexibility between speeds for him specifically, which is not too bad.
Okay, perfect.
One extra
I was
point
going to
doesn't hurt
ask if you had found different speeds here, so that works. So 192 to 194. I have Kafru at 221, going right before Haikatoon.
Same as me.
And then Demytha at 224, going right after that.
224 is me.
And then Renegade as the fastest champion, which in a clan boss team, the fastest champion at 239, I feel like is very manageable.
Very easy to acquire early on, yes.
Yeah.
I was even able to get a damage build with her too at that speed.
Were you? I'm not there yet.
It's not that great, but I got a crit cap and I got 99 crit damage on her.
So. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So that will be the speeds and the books. I will say, let me mention too, you only need the books for Haikatoon in her A2. We just need that cooldown. Rathlos, he can be any damage dealer. I think Fane is actually going to do more damage than him, but I don't have her to test that. He's great. So if you have him, you can use him. If you're going to use Brimstone on him, which is one of the draws, though, you want to make sure you have accuracy. I don't have that much, but once I get a better banner, that will help. I'll put some more accuracy on him. Kafru, have you built him for damage yet?
I did, actually. I was also able to get him crit capped.
Yes. I think he has some decent multipliers.
It's not too bad. I think the only thing that's a little unfortunate for my build is I don't have any books in him. So there are some parts of some of his A2 and his A1, which is where he gets his damage from, that have an increase of damage. So I think I could go a little bit further with mine in terms of damage output, but not too bad. I think one thing we haven't talked about, which would be his blessing, which is kind of like a little bit of a. I did the same thing as you, and it's something that's a little underrated actually for clan boss content.
Yeah, we'll get back to that in a minute. You don't have his A3 booked?
You don't need to because of the reset.
Really?
Correct. So he gets a turn once or twice before the reset, I believe, and then with the reset, he's gonna have enough cooldowns for it.
Interesting.
So it'll total out to still have. I think he's on a 6-turn cooldown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still totals out at that point.
Huh. Awesome. So
if you look at his his position of when he gets his turns, he's actually front loaded. So AoE 1 and AoE 2, he actually gets a lot of turns there. On the third rotation where the stun happens, he only gets 1, which is why he's in the 221 slot for this team.
Oh, okay. I pushed so hard to get those books.
But it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt, but it's not mandatory.
Okay, sweet. Demytha does absolutely no damage, so she should be your last to do masteries for, your last to build damage on. It's just like so hard to get damage on her. And then Renegade, I don't know. I've never really gotten a ton of damage out of Renegade either.
So I actually strained my gear a little bit more in favor of champions that were going to be doing more damage.
Yeah.
The way that this team works is that because she's constantly resetting and refreshing with her A2 and A3, she doesn't really have a high amount of uptime on her A1.
Yeah.
So I actually forgo going damage on her where I got damage everywhere else.
Yeah.
So that was why I decided to let's just get her speeds there, and then I'll put most of my damage on the other champions.
Her being Demytha, correct?
Demytha, correct.
Yeah, okay, awesome, cool. So then how are we going to get more damage in this team? Let's talk about the gear and the blessings and whatnot. You can see that I have Brimstone in there. That does proc sometimes. I don't have the gear to get more accuracy on him yet, but that is part of it. I love having somebody with cruelty in there. And then why don't you talk about this blessing on Khafru here?
So, I'm in the same ballpark as you. I got Brimstone on mine. I actually don't have a higher blessing than you, so good on you for that. Um, and of course, cruelty as well with Demytha.
Mhm.
Khafru, I did the exact same thing as you, and it's because of the following. His A3 puts on 2 buffs for himself, in particular his taunt, which actually goes for a 2-turn duration.
Yeah.
And that actually gets refreshed during the course of this fight. So he actually has a high uptime on having that taunt available for him. Now it
Hmm.
doesn't matter for the context of the fight because the boss is doing AoEs during those other 2 turns, but because he has that extra buff along with the fact that Demytha gives continuous heals, you have increased speed. The higher the buff count, the more damage output you get with Heaven Cast. Since they made the rework to it, the higher the buff count, the more percentage damage you get, and of course, the higher the blessing, the more damage you get per buff.
Yeah.
Mine's is currently at a 1 star, so I only get like 0.5, I believe it is.
That's where mine
Um,
is as well. Yeah.
Correct. So, like, if you do the math on it, you pretty much get like 1.5 to maybe even 2% at one point of like damage output because of how many buffs you have in play.
Yeah. If
Um,
you go all the way to the 6 star for 2% damage, you need to make sure that you alter his speed back down because he'll get +10 speed
Correct.
there. Yeah.
Correct.
And this is one of my favorite blessings in general for Hydra, to buff some damage there. So if you're not using this in your clan boss teams and your Hydra teams, like, it's definitely something worth looking into. And the 3rd star on it is going to be really clutch because he's a defense-based champion. That'll give you the 1% damage for each buff, but also a boost to his defense.
Actually, 4 as well because he also gets crit damage at that
Oh
point too.
yeah, true. Four will be
So
very
4 is
helpful
the 4
also.
is the spicy part for all champions at that point.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So then what did you slash how can we use our gear to improve our damage outside of like crit rate and crit damage on some of these champions?
So I thought about it, and although I don't normally recommend it on most teams, because this team is pretty centric around having block damage, sets like Fury don't benefit it as much.
No.
I was thinking in the same breath though, like there's not really room for relentless per se. So
Mhm.
outside of that, you're pretty much in a place where you have to kind of find your outlet as much as you can. Savage is okay. It's a very small net game because of the fact that Clan Boss Demon Lord doesn't have high defensive stats. Even at Ultra Nightmare, I think it's like 15-20 if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
For Ultra Nightmare, so like a lot of those stats are kind of very negligible. However, in any kind of place where you can get some kind of set bonus, it wouldn't necessarily hurt. Like cruelty wouldn't hurt for your attack type champions or cruel,
Right.
excuse me, cruel set. I even thought about trying to rummage around using Slayer, what was known as Rathalos set before. Slayer because of Rathalos himself using a high uptime on his A2. Since he's
Yeah.
cycling between his A1 and his A2 constantly, every second use of the skill always gets turned into an AoE instead of a single target. But I feel like that kind of still falls in the same department as like um Savage in the sense where like its usage is not as high in terms of its value. It's a small gain, which can't be neglected, but it's still nevertheless one of those ones that's very, very demanding. And then this kind of goes back to your previous question about why I would not like this one. And I do think you saying as an introductory team is a very good way to say it. This team is very support oriented, a lot of utility to make it work.
Right.
So if you can find champions that can compress the usage of 2 champions, or maybe even increase the speed so that you can drop one of those supports off and actually put another damage dealer in, that could be
Hmm.
the answer to giving you more output. But I won't lie, outside of just being able to push gear, and one area that a lot of people may not be aware of, I did have a little bit of trouble getting my speeds initially. Area bonuses, getting your
Yeah.
extra crit damage and affinity bonuses and all that from Great Hall is underrated. It can help you maybe get a little bit closer to that next key step.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that was able to help me in my damage, and I'm gonna be working on in the near future, is going to be Toxic Set.
I
I
was gonna say that
put,
too. Yeah.
yeah, I put High Katoon was the first champion that I could it there. I literally only have one working toxic set. That's where we're at.
Hey,
Um,
you got me beat on that one. I have like 2 good pieces, and the rest of them were just like,
oh,
could be
these
better.
aren't good pieces. Like if we take a look at the gloves here, it's attack percentage
Okay.
gloves. We literally have speed. Okay, so this is not ideal,
Mhm.
but like we're not talking about like really potent damage dealers. These are support
That's
champions
true.
in the team, and so their damage output is not going to be, supreme.
It's not
And
astronomical, yeah.
yeah, so putting the toxic set here is going to help us utilize our debuffs and add a lot more damage to the team. And when I added Kofru to the team, it actually lowered my damage, believe it or not, because I had to take out a damage dealer. I was running Kale in his spot for the longest time, and all of those poisons just add up over time. Even if the team wasn't going all the way to turn 50, you can, if you don't have this champion or Brogni to put in this spot, you can run another damage dealer in that spot, and it'll work on Nightmare for sure, but probably still not enough damage for Ultra Nightmare.
So I will say this because I actually had a chance to experience the same thing you did to a certain degree.
Hmm.
The difference maker, and I think this is the only advantage I have on you, is that I was able to hit pretty decent accuracy requirements along with a damage build for Rathlos,
Oh, sick.
and because I had netted, my teams was falling apart without Kafru at like turn 30 because like the stun scales over time as you go throughout the course of the fight, and eventually you start losing champions, and the run will eventually fall apart and end.
Yeah.
But because I was able to go the full 50, I had higher uptime on Rathlos being able to apply Brimstone procs more basically it's a conversation of like how many times I'm able to put it in the iteration of a total fight. I
Right.
was able to net more turns, which allowed me to put Brimstone more often. And
Yeah.
overall, I was able to net a couple extra mil as a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
But I even thought about it to a certain degree that like, what if I just put Kale in there without Rathalos and just see how much I can get with just straight poison? You know, he's gonna have high uptime because of the reset to be able to do A3 quite often.
Hmm.
That might almost even be comparable.
It is. It definitely is comparable. The only issue is that when you replace Rathlos, then you don't have somebody for the decreased defense
Decreased defense,
anymore. So you're
and that
getting
hurts
more
everybody's
damage
damage.
with the poisons, but then you're getting less damage overall. So it averages out.
Okay. See, so that's actually like a really good point too, as to another reason why Rathalos isn't too bad. That
Yeah.
A1, which is irresistible,
Yeah.
is not too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. It's good. Okay, so wrapping up the video here, let's go ahead in and just like see the run here, and then we'll talk about a couple things while it's going. And then I'll pause and we'll actually, this is Spirit. Oh geez. We'll go
I
ahead.
actually have it on my side if you wanted to see if we can work something out there, but
Okay, yeah, because like this, look, look,
yeah, you
all
got
of the
full
clan,
spirited.
all the clan bosses are Spirit today. Okay, so let me pause the video here. We'll get his side set up, and we can take a look at the team from his side on a rotation that is not Spirit. All right, so let's jump back in here. I'm on Soulsaint's free-to-play account here. We have, as you can see, the same team here. His clan boss is blue, so that's going to be great for showing this off. And this is going to be full auto. Whenever you're running it on Nightmare, remember to do that delay. If you need more information on that, just hit one of us up in Discord. Again, go over, check out his channel. He's going to have some content on this team as well. So if you are having trouble with that delay, just let us know. We can walk you through that. But here on Ultra Nightmare, this is full auto. And to be honest, I feel like that's one of the most shocking parts about this team. But one of the best parts, right?
So, if I could jump in, I actually thought, and as it's running around in the background, I thought that there was going to be some issues because of the fact that, like, for example, we're in Magic. Hai Katu would have faced some issues since she's negative affinity. Like being stunned could desync her cooldowns, which would mean that the run is not in sync, and next thing you know, it falls apart. But the key lies in where Demytha's A2 not only increases the duration of buffs, it also reduces the duration of debuffs. So the stun only has a 1 turn duration, -1 is 0. So she's basically back in play, just like you just saw right there. So it's a very good way to kind of almost like a catch all. I think outside of Spirit, which is the only thing because there's a sync up period that it doesn't operate like optimally. And then all you need to do is once you get past that sync up period, it's going to go to a point where Kafru's kicking in and he's able to consistently keep the taunt up for the stun period, which means that affinity issues are no longer an issue. So it catches in two different ways, but ideally, especially during the sync up period, Demytha is really really good at being able to mitigate some disruptions on the composition. At this point, though, you saw that he took the stun, and now everybody is fully in sync. So you're going to see pretty much it's going to be a rinse or repeat where you're going to get your resets. Demytha is going to do her A3 at the end of every turn, and it's just going to be constantly cycling through that while Rathless is putting out as much output as he can.
Yeah,
I have a question for you since we're watching the run.
absolutely.
What was your best affinity so far between the three that we could do that you got your most output on?
I think this one, I think blue, because Rathlos being strong affinity and him just like getting extra damage there. But I haven't run it. I haven't had it up and running for that long to know for sure. So is that what you had found as well, or something different?
Believe it or not, I don't know if this has to do with the fact that there were some RNG elements with the land rate for Brimstone.
Mm-hmm.
I think if memory serves me correctly, even Force was actually pretty good too. So
Yeah.
he's neutral affinity here, but that's where Haikatun has more damage
Yeah.
because she's positive affinity.
Yeah.
So that's the only difference maker there. But I think that the only issue is like the decreased attack that he puts after AoE 2 can be a little bit of an issue. But remember, she's cleansing too as well. So
Right.
you lose it eventually.
Right.
But I do believe if memory serves me correctly, Magic was the best one
Yeah.
because of Rathlos just doing what he does best is
Yeah.
damage.
Now, just to put in here, in case people fast forwarded to the actual run, make sure you go back and you look at the speeds. The speeds are going to be the most important thing about this team, is hitting those speeds. There's not a lot of variation. We talked a little bit about Rathlos having a little bit of wiggle room, or whoever your DPS is there. But the key component here is this taunt unkillable buff on Kafru. That was the thing that we both figured out, and then we came together and we were both astounded that each other figured it out, I think. And that was like the coolest part about this whole process, was us coming to the same conclusion about this champion in this specific team. And it's been an absolute blast to compare notes and pull all of this together with you throughout this free-to-play challenge process, my dude.
And I will say this too, because like he actually pointed out, I don't remember if I said it first or if you said it out before I did, but like I mentioned and I showed my runs and I showed my damage output in the group chat that we're in, and I was like, man, I got some a good starting point, but it burned out around this turn. I'm gonna see if there's any options. And he was like, did you take a look at that new epic? What do you think? And I was like, and then that just started the whole rabbit hole for us being able to kind of see is it possible to play him in? Can we consistently do it? Does it have anything? And believe it or not, funny thing, when we first talked about it, Kafra wasn't on Deadwood Jedi's calculator.
Right.
So I don't know if you had to do this yourself. I actually went into the calculator. I put Maneater as my fifth to kind of placate the spot for Kafru, and then I just set the cooldowns of his abilities on his A3 and his A2 to match respectively what I was doing with Kafru, which funny enough, I mean, it's cool to see that you actually got yours fully booked, but I immediately checked to see if it would work at 6 turn cooldown. So I didn't have to book him at all, and I was able to get that. It worked for me, but it's also cool to show that like even if you fully book him, he works just the same. In terms of like making sure this engine up and running. I mean, we're already 23 turns in. Without Kafru, it would burn out by like turn 25, 26, 27 is when you start seeing people die. And by 30, everybody's dead. So this one's going to go all the way up to 50, which is what you would expect on a team comp like this.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really pleased with this team because this is really the first time that I feel like I've put a good innovation on an established clan boss team. And, you know, in combination with you, we figured it out, and that's been really, really cool. I will say, I did try to mess around in the calculator, but without, I wish I would have thought of that was a great idea using Maneater in there. I couldn't I couldn't think of something to do for that. So really, I was trusting just my knowledge of the game, if I'm being honest. I was just
That's
going
good.
off of
That's good, man.
intuition, being like, okay, his cooldowns seem like they match up. Renegade's gonna lower them, he's gonna match up, and he's gonna fit in real nice. Like that taunt buff directing the clan boss stun. Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
It saves the fight. If it saves
Yeah.
the team, actually, believe it or
Yeah.
not.
And
Yeah.
I think we can apply that in other teams too. Like he could be the stun target in the whatever team. He's the perfect stun
War
target.
Tower, yeah, like
Yeah.
War Tower normally needs like something like to comp with him, like Skull Crusher or
Right.
Warcaster. You know,
Right.
like there's a lot of variances, and he's now one of those champions that you can plug and play in addition to already established teams for sure.
Yeah.
Shoot, Emic, he just recently came out not too long ago and created
Yeah.
a whole new plethora of champions. He
Yeah.
still would complement that type of team,
Yeah.
which is fantastic to
100%.
see.
Yep. Yep. And I think, if I'm not wrong, that 2-turn taunt is very, I don't want to say unique, because I think Emix is 2 turns. But I don't think the other guys have 2-turn taunts. Like Dudan, I know his is 1 turn. And so that 2-turn taunt, that's something that we could bring in Hydra possibly. Like this champion kind of flew under the radar, I think, and he is very powerful.
Understandably so. I mean, it was associated to a very strong fusion champion,
Yes.
but for those like for me, for example, I didn't set myself with the expectation or with the desire to go for Armands this round. I wanted just to get what I needed for the clan boss team initially, and then along the way we stumbled upon the fact it's like, wait a minute, taunt plus unkillable means that I've already solved 2/3 of the problem of the clan boss team with Demytha. This is the third, and that gave me the full 50 turns, which is what we're getting closer and closer towards.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and the video is getting a little long here. Let's go ahead and pause. We'll come to the damage screen and then wrap up the video. Oh my goodness, we went all the way to turn 50. And what did you just say, my dude?
We had a personal best with this one. You see that?
Let's go. So as you can see, hiding behind me, Haikatoon, Kafru, Blade Master. There you go, my dude. That was perfect. You could see Demytha doing no damage, which is expected. But I think you probably have masteries on all of these people except
Correct.
Demytha.
They are fully mastered out.
Okay, perfect. I'm a little behind that. And so you can see here, this is what you can expect from your first Ultra Nightmare team, which is amazing. And then there's so much upside. You know, as you continue to play this game, you're going to grow your damage. You're going to increase your builds. You're going to have some other options. And then later down the road, you can basically, you know, switch this team into one of the higher damage output Demytha teams. But for being able to unlock Ultra Nightmare, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
And getting close to this basically means you're almost on the path to like a 3-key, 4-key Ultra Nightmare, which means top chest.
Yep, exactly. And so I think this is an amazing team for a lot of people. Anything else you want to say while we're wrapping the video up here about the team? It's been an awesome experience working through this team with you.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. I to add on to what he was saying about as your account develops and grows, there's some things to note. If you notice, there were some counterattacks that were happening outside of when Kafra was getting stunned, and that kind of lies with, I believe, the mastery called deterrence, where if you are if you're able to hit a certain amount of stat requirements, those are fulfilled, like you don't need to worry about the support tree anymore, then you can go down the defense tree and maybe get your hands on deterrence, which will allow you a chance to be able to, not deterrence, it's the one right beside it, I believe, where retribution, where you actually have a chance, it's a 50-50, where you can have a counterattack as a byproduct of Kafru losing all of his health after the stun hit. So that could be an extra way where you get some more damage, but it'll grow. The builds will improve, and that means that the damage output will scale up. And from there, you know, you're enjoying the best rewards you can get in the game, basically.
Yeah. And I guess too, as a final reminder, since this is a team meant for newer players, let's make sure we have War Master as our tier 6 mastery on all our champions. That's going to get you the most damage here on Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss. All right, man. Thank you so much for letting me hop on your account over here. I appreciate that. and it has been an absolute pleasure working on this team with you. I'm so glad we're able to share this with everyone. Again, guys, make sure you go check out Soulsaint's channel. I'm going to have that linked over there. Let's get him to 1,000 subscribers. He definitely deserves it. And
Thank you.
make sure you let us know what your questions are in the comments. We'll be filtering down there to answer those questions for you. At some point, maybe I'll hop over on his channel. We'll do a collab over there. So you're going to have to go subscribe to him to make sure that you see that. Uh, Thanks, guys. And anything else you want to say while we're heading out the door here?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to take some time and showcase this with you. You could have done it with anybody else, but you chose me. So big special salutes myself personally to you, Mr. Jedi, for all the love and support, even on Twitch. For those that don't know, Jedi also streams there too as well. And you know, whenever we have the opportunity, I'm always throwing him the community, the family, and he also reciprocates it back. So it's nothing but love and appreciation. Thank you for all you do, and I look forward to seeing what more we can bring up to the table. You know.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, my dude, and we will see you guys later.